Hi, I'm Brett and welcome back to Reliance Australia. Just want to start today's video by saying a huge thank you to everyone that's come onto the channel to have a look at the videos and also connecting through the comments. That's been fantastic. So thank you for that. And look, having a shed has been probably a cornerstone for me, particularly around being more self-reliant. It allows me to have a workspace, it allows me to store stuff that's important. It also allows me to store things that I want close to hand that I can easily access, but it's not going to be in the house. But also I don't want it put away, say over in the shipping container where I need to sort through things, move things around to get to it. These things are up in the shed, are generally on shelves and easily accessible. So it's probably no surprise that the most popular video I've had on the channel so far has been on when I built the shed. So today's video, I want to look at the 3 things that I think everyone should consider before you build your shed. So let's go get into it. So there are 3 things I think you need to consider, and ironically or not ironically, like there's a few sub-points between under each of these 3 points. So maybe it's going to be like the 15 things you need to worry about. But look, let's have a look at the first one. And I think the first one is purpose. So when you understand what you want to do with your shed and what you want to do in your shed and how you want to use your shed, that will shape things like size, you know, the dimensions of it, where you want to put it, how you're going to build it, all those types of things. So for me in particularly, I wanted to be able to store the caravan in here. I want to be able to store the trailer and a car. I also wanted to have a workspace. I mentioned before at the start that being more self-reliant for me meant having a space where I can build things, repair things. Because having access or ready access to a lot of tradies, especially a bit more niche stuff, so like furniture repair, for example, or just simple things like building a stool for the shed. I don't have access to a lot of shops here. Like the shops in town are quite small, so it's more of a seaside village more than anything. So we don't have access to all those things. So to be able to build things, fix things has become really important. And also the tradies are busy here. So to get a tradie out to the house can sometimes take a fair while to wait. And sometimes we don't always have that option to wait as well. So the ability to be able to fix things and repair things ourselves becomes really important. We also want to have a space where the kids could hang out as well. So when you take that into consideration, all those things combined, then you start looking at, how big do we make the shed? So I'll talk about storing the caravan in here. So when I went to the shed builder, I said, hey, look, I need it to be a certain length because I know in our old home, I could get the caravan in the garage, but I couldn't actually close the garage door because the triangle at the front there used to poke out under the door. But if we ever went away on a trip and like say for a weekend and there's a bit of moisture in the air or it was raining, I couldn't come home and then set up the caravan to dry out. So what I had in mind for this shed was that I wanted to be able to go away. It could be pouring rain when we packed the caravan up, and I could come back, reverse it in, set it up, and it could dry out without getting any mold or mildew back into the canvas or on the mattresses which are sitting underneath the canvas. So the shed had to be a certain depth, and so that's how when I went to the guy I said, look, this is what I want to be able to do with it, and that then also shapes the height. So when you start talking dimensions, it's not just the depth that we're now talking about, it's also how high do we want to go. But this is one of the things you want to take into account too, is the shed builder that you're working with. So one of the things that he started talking about then was, hey, how big a door do you need? And sure, you could say that he's just trying to upsell me, but I think if you have a good salesman, he'll get you the shed that you're going to be happy with. Because the worst shed that you can build is one that doesn't do the job that you want it to do, or worse still, that you get 5 or 6 years down the track and go, gee, I'd actually like a full-size caravan because I'm getting a bit older to keep winding it up and down, or the kids are left home, so I don't need a van that stores, can sleep a lot of people. I just want a smaller van that I can pull up and jump into. So with that in mind, we went with bigger doors because I wasn't going to get 3-meter high doors originally, but he did convince me that that was a great idea because down the track we may want to upgrade our caravan. And like that makes sense. So will we or won't we? Like I'd say it's probably not now, but back when we actually designed and talked about building the shed, it was definitely on the cards. So get a really clear picture about what you want to be able to do. So another thing that we wanted to do, or actually what I wanted to do anyway, is to have a hoist potentially in the shed. But with that in mind, I had to put extra concrete into the slab. And you can see that in the picture that's coming through. With the idea in mind that we wanted to be able to have some space where the kids can come up, but also potentially put some flooring down. What I didn't want was moisture soaking up through the concrete. So with that in mind, you can see from the pictures I've put there and also from the video when we're building the shed as well, I actually laid plastic down underneath. So that was another extra that we put in when we built the shed. Now, because it was a shed, technically I didn't need to do that. Normally I put plastic under slabs if you plan on living in it. But what that has also allowed me to do is that when I've sealed the concrete slab, and you will have seen that from a previous video on sealing the floor, what it meant is that moisture hasn't come back up and it hasn't bubbled underneath the sealer that I've put down. Because some of the feedback I got from a couple of people was, you don't want to put the sealer on the floor because the moisture will come up and it'll just bubble it up and it'll have a really crappy finish. But look, that hasn't happened. And I put that down to the fact that I've put the plastic down underneath first, and that's stopping that moisture from coming through. And look, the finish has been fantastic. But the other part was obviously my workshop space where I'm currently sitting, and then an area for the kids to hang out. So that then determines how many bays in the shed that I wanted to have. Now sure, I would love to have a couple of more bays. That would be great. And like the guy at the shop said, or the shed builder says, you never have too big of a shed, but some of that also then comes down to practicalities and cost. I've definitely got the space to have a bigger shed, but the practicalities and cost of that did actually start to factor in at some point there. So that's one of the big drivers behind the size shed that we chose. So the depth was important because we wanted to be able to fit the caravan in, and then the width was because I wanted to be able to have so many bays to do things in, if that makes sense. So the second point is like the location or positioning of your shed. So I'm going to go outside. It's probably going to get a bit noisy with the wind, but you can probably see there. I'll see if I can zoom in a bit. So today's not super windy, but you can see that's moving around a fair bit. But we're facing the front of the shed where I'm standing now is facing north. Originally, we were going to have it actually on the side of the driveway. You can see the driveway sort of over there, and so the doors were going to be facing west. And normally, there's a strong westerly that blows, but we also get a very, very strong northerly wind that seems to come up the gully and just hits the house. But it also hits the shed here. So what you'll see we put in these extra strong tracks for the door to go in. You can also see, if I can bring that door down, you can see strengthening in on the door as well. So what that does is allows that door to be stronger, so when the wind hits it, it doesn't blow inside out. So the other thing that I looked at, oh look at that, some of our friendly ducks that live in the pond behind the shed. So originally, like I said, I was going to put it over here beside the driveway. Now, one of the main reasons for that was that I thought I'd be able to save on essentially putting gravel in, because making driveways and putting gravel down can be expensive. So if I had the shed sitting over there and facing out, it meant that I wouldn't have to put in extra driveways. So that can be an ancillary cost to your shed. So whether you're going to put concrete in or gravel in, whatever it's going to be, it all adds to the cost of your shed. So another part of that location and positioning piece is drainage. So if you're the concreter that did this for me, I won't mention your name because you did an absolutely brilliant job. I love the work you did, but I know you did say to fix up this drainage before I got too far. So you can see a bit of drainage there, but it's also the water runoff. So what you can see is I have a pipe running here. So it comes off sorry about the wind. You can see it comes down into a little tank, then I run it into the dam, which is great, that's fine, it's all legal, it's all council approved. But ideally what I'd like to be able to do is put that into a really big water tank. So ideally I'd like to get like 100 or 150,000 litre tank, and then I would never have a water problem on the property at all. But at the moment, the cheapest option was to run it into the dam, which keeps that nice and full, keeps the frogs happy, keeps the ducks happy, and our little baby ducklings. But what you don't want is the water flowing out, flooding your house, because these, especially depending on the size of your shed, it does collect water, and that water needs to go somewhere. So that can be another aspect that you really need to consider when you're positioning your shed. The third one is about the quality of finish. So what you can see up behind me, you can see like the insulation on the roof. And in a previous video, I also talked around sealing around the outside of the wall, so the vermin control. Putting the plastic underneath, doing the extra strengthening on the doors. Now, while they sort of tie into some of those other pieces around positioning and all that sort of stuff, they weren't, look, I could have got away with it. I could have just said, no, you know what? I don't want to do it. And the shed would have been like literally thousands of dollars cheaper. And I had a friend over last night, and we were talking about the shed and the cost of it. And look, it wasn't a cheap build, but it has been worth it. Like for me to put the plastic underneath, you know, I think that was about $400 or $500. May not be that much, but I think it's close to that. Putting extra concrete in for the hoist, you know, there's another few $100s. Upgrading the doors was, you know, significantly more. So putting the vermin control around, more money again. Putting the insulation on the roof, there's, you know, probably $1,500 as well. So all those things add up to the cost of your shed. So if you're clear about the quality of shed that you want and what you want to use it for, you may be more than happy to not put insulation on the roof, not worry about the vermin control, because you might have some other plans on how you're going to manage that. You may have plans around the quality of finish on your floor, so you may not care about what happens to your floor. You might be more than happy to have just your straight concrete slab, and when oil spills on it, don't worry about it, give it a wipe and it soaks and leaves a stain, and that's all part of having a shed. Some people don't even have concrete in their shed floor. Some people, especially for machinery, will just have a dirt floor as well, which is fine, and that works really, really well if that's the type of shed you want to use it for. So being clear about that quality of finish, I think, is a major cost impact, but also things that you want to consider. So where do you want to do all the extra stuff? So look, I have hoped that that helps. So they're the things that I looked at when I was building the shed. So it was about what the purpose is, where the location is going to be, and where I was going to position the shed, but then also the quality of finish, or the standard of finish that I was happy to accept. That are my 3 tips, things to consider before you build your shed. I hope that's been helpful. Love to hear your thoughts and comments in the comment section below. Look, I know every shed is different to every person, and it means different things to different people too, but for me it's a place where I can come up, do jobs, work things, create things, fix things, but also store things that I think are important for the family to have reasonably close by. So look, if you found this helpful and you liked it, please subscribe. Really appreciate the increase in subscriber numbers. Ding the bell if you want to get notification when the videos come out. And as always, if you liked it, please share it with your friends. Until next time, I'll see you then.